piece of land goes back to the purchase around a little after 1800 by a military man named George Dennison of a skinny little strip farm that ran from Queen Street to Bloor Street, right through the heart of what's now Kensington Market. He built a house that was called Bellevue. The idea was that to develop this into a residential area, and in order to be able to attract people to the area, it was going to need a church. And it became St. Stephen in the Fields Church. Kensington Market, as we see it today, is the remains of a couple of things that happened. The first thing that happened was it was populated originally by British and Irish immigrants. So from the very beginning, the buildings that you see here now it was always a newcomer place. Around the 1920s, after the First World War, there was a huge incoming wave of Jewish immigrants. It was so pronounced that 85% of all of the Jews in Toronto lived in Kensington. So they lived in these little houses. They started out with putting boxes on the front steps and selling stuff out of it, or putting a cart that they would pull in from the backyard and put out in the street. And then they said, well, I'll just enlarge the front window and we won't use the living room. It'll become the grocery store. And then they'd say, I think I'll build a box out front and put a plate glass window on it so it looks like a real shop. So all the stuff that you see on the commercial streets today, like Augusta, Baldwin in particular, that was built in that effort of entrepreneurship. That's basically from 1920 to
I'm a filmmaker. I'm from Toronto. My connections to Kensington, I guess really it's in my blood. My parents were both born in Kensington, one in 1914, one in 1923. My great-grandfather first immigrated here. My grandparents came here as first generations. So that's all predating my experience with it, but it was part of the mythology of my family. And the Jewish community basically landed here and grew up here, so it was part of my upbringing. When I was about 16, I first wandered down here and experienced the hipness and craziness and clutter and nuttiness that is Kensington, and coming out of the cookie cutter stamped out houses of the suburbs. I didn't know this existed. I loved it, and it was tough to get me out of here to go back home. It means a lot to me because the one thing about Kensington is it's been open to everybody, that you can be from any country in the world, you can be as wacky or crazy as you want to be, and you've got an open pass to be here. And I think people lose their guard and relax and open up the second they start walking down these streets. And I think it's a very unique place in Toronto and a unique place in the world, actually.
It's just so colorful in and of itself, just like there's personality everywhere, just in the buildings, in the people around. Yeah.
A certain level of authenticity, a certain level of character. I think despite where you're from, Toronto, if you say the name Kensington, there's a very specific geographic imagination that's attached to the market. And I think that's a really special quality and something that doesn't exist in a lot of other cities around the world.
Well, there's no big box stores here, so it makes it more friendly and more appealing, I find.
It's a little more personal, right?
A lot more personal, yes.
My name's Maddie, and I'm the production manager for this project. And really what we're trying to accomplish here is to show the whole spectrum of Kensington Market. So that's from, the first 150 years of what's happened to kind of foreshadowing what might come to be in the market, and to sort of just uncover those stories of every sort of era and every metamorphosis the market's gone through.
We also want to meet the people who are here now. And we also want to look at some of the activities and forces that are going to shape the market for the future and in some cases threaten the character of the market. So it's a random snapshot of many different aspects of Kensington Market, and hopefully we'll learn more about the city and about the country and about our community.
As we were walking up here, we were thinking about how they're building bigger buildings all around here, and we were really hoping that they won't build something in here and they'll leave it this way, pristine, if you will. Yeah.
There's a certain chaotic warmth to Kensington Market, and something that keeps me coming back to it. Yeah, it just holds a near and dear place in my heart.
The other thing I want to just mention about this project is while we call it a documentary, and it will be a film project where we're interviewing people, it's also really a digital media project that will invite people from the market and around the city and around the world to tell their story and share their views of what Kensington is. So together we can build this bigger collage, which is really the documentary of the 21st century. It's no longer just a film, it's basically a conversation and a dialogue, and we hope that a lot of people will enter into that.
This project intends to tell the story of Kensington Market, how it came to be, what it is, and where it might go. It's an important thing to do because it's a unique area in Toronto and the world. There's just no place like it. We want to save it, send some money so they can make the film so everybody can share in the knowledge.
When he walks down the street, he smiles at everyone, everyone that he meets, calls him King of Kensington.
How you doing, King?